We are back with another episode of the Sky Society podcast. Today, I am chatting with Sang Lee. She is the corporate communications manager at Bumble. Welcome, Sang.
Hi, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm excited to dive in and go through your career journey. Sang has been at Bumble for over 4 years now and has had 5 different positions in that time, which is insane. So we're going to dive into her career journey in just a minute, but I want to start off with just asking you to tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. My name is Sang. I'm the corporate communications manager here at Bumble. So in my job, I support any and all external communications opportunities that really help enhance the understanding of Bumble's brand values and as well as our approach to business.
That is beautiful. What a cool job, and especially for such an incredible company working for Bumble. I know so many people that is like their dream job to work for Bumble because of all the amazing things that they stand for. So, yeah, what a cool opportunity to be able to work for them.
Thank you.
So you started working at Bumble immediately out of college. So you went to school over in Austin, and I know Bumble has a huge presence like in Austin in general because that's where their headquarters are.
Right.
So tell me, I know you've had those 5 different roles, but before you got into those positions, how did you first get your foot in the door at Bumble?
That's a great question. So my goal, it was never in my plan to ever work for Bumble. It really happened to stumble upon the opportunity. A lot of PR majors at UT Austin, what our career paths are, really we're encouraged to go into the agency life and really spend our time really learning the fundamentals of what it's like to be a publicist and a specialist in that field. And so that was kind of my goal after graduation as well. I had interned for a boutique PR agency based in Austin for a year and really had plans to work there after graduating. But then after a year of the agency internship, I realized I really wanted to work across an organization because in an agency, you work in a very narrow scope, in my perspective, of the client comes to you with the problems and you are the problem solver for that scope of work. But I had curiosity beyond that and that defined scope of work and really wanted to learn more about the client and really lean into the brand's institutional knowledge. And so by the end of my senior year in college, I really happened to come across the internship opportunity at Bumble. And the night that I found the opening, I applied. And then a week later, voila, I was an intern at
Oh,
Bumble.
wow. I love how you describe that difference between thought you wanted to do agency and then you went into in-house. And we've covered it a couple times on the podcast, but it's something that I get asked all the time. Everyone's trying to decide
Mhm.
agency, in-house, which one is better? What should I do? And so I think the way you described the difference between the two was really beautiful. And that I think could be helpful for someone that's deciding between the two.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit. So you started in PR, and you mentioned that was your degree, and that was the beginning of your career over at Bumble before you switched into more of a communications role. But I want to
Mhm.
start in that PR piece. So what did you do for PR for Bumble?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, PR at Bumble, when I was first hired back in 2018, it really depended on the needs of the business too. PR looks and is defined so vastly differently
Mhm.
from organization to organization and depending on which agency you work for and what client you work for. But at Bumble specifically, we were rapidly growing and there was a lot of need to lean into the brand specifically, which is so fun to work on and such an honor to work on a mission aligned brand that has so many different layers to it, whether that is the product itself. We also have products beyond dating, we have friendships and networking. And so we had a lot of consumer related campaigns and a lot of exciting work on that side. So my role in PR consisted of really supporting a lot of the consumer campaigns in that role when I started at Bumble.
So what is the difference between so yeah, you have these PR titles. You can go to Sang's LinkedIn profile and see all of her different jobs at Bumble. There's a lot. And then you switch it to communication. So what is the difference? I'm sure it's a nuance. What is the difference between working in PR versus working in communications?
Yeah, so it is very nuanced, but the I think the difference is when I was focused on the more PR related role, I was very much focused on the media relations and the more of the consumer publicity related aspects of it. And you work so closely with the brand and the marketing team on a lot of the marketing campaigns that the marketing team is really leading. And so it'll be like integrated marketing efforts with PR amplifications and PR strategy added to it. From a communications level, I think for me, you work on more of the broader aspects of it. And it really depends because right now I'm operating on a Bumble Inc. and a Bumble Group level. And so what that means is a lot of global campaigns related to the way that we approach business. So that includes like a lot of the financial communications and also the business communications that we do. Is that helpful?
Yes, so that's a lot. So you're really, I guess it's in the title, you're focused just more on communications essentially. But yeah, that is really cool. I'm more experienced on the marketing side, and like marketing and PR are super close, and I'm sure PR and communications are really similar. But I know that communications is a major that so many people take. So it's interesting to see what that career path can look like for someone.
Mhm.
So for people that do have this communications background and they're trying to get closer to the world of PR and communications, what can they do?
That is a really good question. I think when you're trying to get into the world of communications, the one thing that comes to mind is fundamentals. Fundamentals are really important, and that understanding of the importance of storytelling are the two most important things. I think that is a reason why my mind goes back to why I was so focused on getting an agency job from the beginning of my career, because I wanted to have the building blocks under my belt of whether that is building media lists, of knowing what the right contacts are to put on the media list and curate that, and know what story to pitch to what journalists, and learning what beats and stories that they write, and having an understanding of that and what would click. If you don't have those fundamentals, I feel like it's harder to kind of break into the field. And those fundamentals are, I think, more important versus like the actual major from my perspective and from my experience.
That is, so you're saying the experience piece of going out, doing the work, building up like what that lowest level, PR position does, because even though it seems like it's meaningless, it's the foundation that builds upon for the rest of your career. So it's the experience
Absolutely.
piece. Okay.
Absolutely.
So is that the best way to get it, is to go out and get an internship?
I think so. I mean, nothing really beats experience in my perspective. And I think there was a one fun incident when I first started as an intern at Bumble. My boss at the time had I think she had a trip booked and she had to be out of the office, but there was a big an interview that was scheduled with the Bumble kind of original founders at that time. But I was so afraid to be staffing the event. But my boss is like saying, you're never going to learn how to do this unless like you're in the room, like on site, really handling this. I do understand that fear, but I think you've got this. And so at that level in my career, to have that kind of level of trust bestowed upon me
Yeah.
by my boss at the time was scary, but also very empowering at the same time. And that's been kind of my experience working for Bumble thus far in my career, and really like helped to fast track my growth. But it was so enlightening to go through that experience in my first few weeks of the internship, sitting in the room of the founder's room in the office and really like being there. Of course, we had our chief communications officer at on site as well for support, but that was a very surreal experience for me, and what really defined why I wanted to stay and continue to grow at Bumble.
That's incredible. And I'm 100% in agreement that experience is so much more valuable. That is a huge part of what we talk about here at Sky Society, because education is great, but there's nothing beats, like what you said, nothing beats being in the room with those executives, having the pressure, having to actually do something that college just can't teach you, that it really just takes putting yourself into situations where you're really uncomfortable and maybe really scared, and then learning so much by doing it.
Absolutely.
So one of the terms that you had mentioned to me before was a pace setter.
Mhm.
And I want to get into how you were able to get promoted so quickly and move up at Bumble. But I want to touch on this piece because I've never heard it before. So what is a pace setter?
A pacesetter, I think, so the dictionary definition of this, to provide context for anyone who's never heard of it before, is a runner or competitor who sets the pace at the beginning of the race or a competition. So that way, sometimes to help other runners break a record. And so that was an enlightening concept for me when I first came upon it. And I think it's so different from having a competitor because a pace setter helps to put kind of your goals on your map for you, on your kind of like roadmap of growth or your roadmap of your career journey, helps to set that pace. And you kind of look at the pace in which this person sets their own track and their own race. And it kind of inspires you to think, what are the markers that I need to think about? What are the records that I need to break in order for me to get to my destination? And so it's not about seeing them as competition, but more like an inspiration for my career journey and my roadmap. And that's honestly been kind of the key to my continued growth in my career, because whatever skill sets that this pace setter demonstrates, whatever progress that this pace setter demonstrates, it kind of motivates me and inspires me to think, oh, that organizational edge or that kind of confidence in leading meetings, or that level of judgment or that level of insight that they're able to bring to strategy meetings or brainstorms. I want to get there. And I think having those pace setters in your life in whatever areas of your life, doesn't have to be your career, has been phenomenally helpful for me.
I love that term. I like how you're almost switching it from competitor to just someone who basically like, I want to keep up with you. I
Yes.
A couple analogies come to mind is like, have you ever gone or I do this. I'll go to the gym and I'm right next to someone on the treadmill and I'm competing. You
Yeah.
have no idea. But I'm trying to run just as fast as they are, to walk less than they are, and they're my pace setter in a setting of the gym. And so you're bringing that over to the workplace as saying, find someone who's, who you kind of want to keep up with, who can push you to keep getting those promotions or speaking up. And
Right.
I think that's
Right.
an amazing term to put on that.
And I think it's a good thing to have in an organization because we're kind of all looking around. It was like, I respect my colleagues. I have so much respect for the talent and um, the level of talent that they bring to the organization or the team. And I want to meet that. And honestly, from my personal experience, I love going to soul cycle classes, and soul cycle class instructors are the best at setting
Yes.
pace setters for you. And so whoever that's next to you, you kind of have to like match their pace or kind of have to work up to the progress. And so honestly, that's been kind of a game changer for me.
I'm also thinking back to when I was in high school. I remember I didn't know what AP classes were or that they were something I needed to take,
Mm.
but I vividly remember like the like other kids being like, "Oh, I'm taking these APs," and me being like, "Okay, then I'm taking these APs." Then they're like, "Oh, well, we're going to a college seminar," and then I'm like, "Okay, well then I'm
I'm
going to
going.
a college seminar." So I feel like I like the idea that it can apply to your career, it can apply to fitness, it can apply to so many different things of just finding people that, yeah, that are setting the pace. I think that's a really beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
Or is there anything else? Because I'm keep going back to how you had so many positions at Bumble in such a short
Yeah.
amount of time, but anything else you can share of how you were able to get promoted and keep moving forward at Bumble?
I think adaptability and flexibility has been key. I never thought that I had an aptitude for problem solving as much as I did before working at Bumble. And it's honestly been something that I'm still like working on. But it's adaptability and flexibility is really the key because you just never know what to expect in your not not at Bumble, but just like in your career or in your job. And there might be opportunities that you would have never thought that would kind of stumble upon you. But then when the opportunity comes, you kind of have to rise to that occasion, kind of going back to that example of when I was so afraid to help staff that magazine interview with the founders and in the first few weeks of my internship, but then also having to go into that and really like going through that experience and having that under my belt. And so I think whenever big opportunities came, I kind of forced myself to go back to that, go down memory lane of the things and challenges that I never thought I could handle, being able to kind of step up to that and like really giving myself the pep talk of you can do this, you can get through this. And no matter where you land at the end of the day, the fact that you even like courageously walked into those challenges and experienced it in itself is meaningful. And so that's kind of been my career journey so far. And I also have to credit like my incredible mentors and my manager that I've had throughout my career at Bumble because they've been so supportive. And it's always been so refreshing because whenever I walk into any reviews or any feedback sessions, the question is always coming back to me of saying you are ultimately the driver in your own seat of driving where you want to be in your career. So I want you to tell me, like, I'm challenging you to tell me where you want to be at your career. And every single time I've been vocal about that, I feel like my voice has been heard and I have been able to navigate my career path forward that way. That's kind of how I've been able to transition from more of the PR focused roles to the communications facing roles because I had always thought I wanted to stick more to the consumer and the lifestyle side of PR, where you're supporting in consumer related events and connecting with people IRL. And those campaigns are always really fun. But then at the end of the day, when I came across new challenges when Bumble went public for the first time, and there was this thing called earnings calls, and there was this thing called financial communications and executive communications, I had really wanted to channel in a lot of the fundamental building blocks I've been able to get under my belt through the various positions I've had, whether that was the global PR coordinator from the internship role here at Bumble, to really like get that institutional knowledge and accumulate that into the more business focused communications role. So that's kind of how I've been able to navigate long-winded way to share how I've been able to navigate my career change. I think I'm more than happy to kind of break down the tactical things I kind of applied in my career,
Yeah,
if
I would
that'll
love
be
to hear that.
helpful.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because
Okay, okay.
what you've done is awesome, and so, yeah, if there's any other technical pieces that people can, like, take into their life or go into their job and start implementing, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So one piece of tactical thing I always, always, always come back to is it's proposals, not problems. It's all in the positioning of things. So that is how I've been able to get kind of like grow stronger my aptitude for problem solving. So whenever there is a problem, the instinct when you have as like an entry level person is to go to your manager and report or escalate the problem that you're experiencing immediately. But then having to kind of control that impulse and think for a second, pause. What are the option A, B, and C's that you would consider if you were in your manager's position to solve this?
Yes.
Yeah,
So instead of just going and saying, "Hey, this random example, this Instagram post went out and we were having a lot of negative comments," and that's it. It's like, "Hey, this Instagram post came out. It's getting a bunch of negative comments. I think we should do A, B, or C to solve it."
absolutely. And in your manager's position, even if those solutions might not work from their perspective or from where they're sitting, they appreciate the gesture because your managers, when you're in a managerial position, you have to make so many decisions and judgment calls in your life to have kind of a direct report or someone that reports under you to come up with these solutions on their own, kind of like this gesture in itself is meaningful and shows that they're willing to kind of think through problem solving exercises on their own, which is going to be super, super helpful as they continue to grow and develop their careers.
Yes, that's a really great one. Proposals, not problems.
Proposals, not problems. Yes.
Amazing. Any other tactical pieces you could share?
I think for me, one other thing is always asking. because it from in the beginning of my career, I always thought, oh, this seems kind of impossible from my perspective. So I'm just going to say it doesn't seem like it's possible, or I don't think that they're willing to budge, or it would focus more on like the unlikeliness or the impossibility of something if I come across a problem that seemed larger than life or just seemed overwhelming. But the feedback that I had received going through those types of motions is, have we exhausted all possible options? Um, or are we just assuming that it's a no? And so in those instances, exhausting all the options, going through the exercises has actually been super helpful, or demonstrating that I have thought through all of the possible options to get through this challenge or to get this through the finish line has been super helpful for me, and something that I've been able to develop over my career.
That's a good one. Instead of just getting discouraged the first time, no, or when
Yeah,
it seems like it's impossible, just saying, okay, even if there's a very small 1% chance that it could work, I'm going to exhaust all of my options before telling, my manager or boss that I wasn't able to do the task or whatever it is.
absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, those are, I think, two really great tactical pieces to take away from that. I want to get in just to wrap up this episode is to something that I think you've been able to do really well is build a meaningful career. And
Mm.
at Sky Society, I like to talk about it a lot. Our tagline I mentioned to you is do what you dream, and that you should be able to really do work that you love. And that work shouldn't be something that you wake up and dread going to, because we spend so much time doing it. And so, can you share a little bit about what the anatomy is of a meaningful career?
Yes, absolutely happy to share that. And to caveat, it took me a while to figure out the anatomy, and I can't say this is a one size fits all. So it really depends on where you're at in your career journey, and the experiences that you want in yourself of how you want to define the anatomy of a meaningful career. But just to kind of walk through a couple of the components for me is number one. Um, is the surrounding culture and the people around you help you give you a sense of belonging and help you feel like you have a voice. And that's been so true in my career at Bumble. People here are the reason, like, why I love hopping on Zoom calls even when it's exhausting, when you're doing back to backs, or just the culture at Bumble is so phenomenal, and it's the little things that really count, and people are so thoughtful, and they really embody the core values that we have, which from at the beginning of my internship, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, do we really live and breathe these values? But the people have demonstrated, like, time and time again, that that is so true, and that's what makes the culture at Bumble so special. People are truly genuinely kind and respectful, and I feel like that type of environment just helps you be your authentic self. And even like more of an timid person like me could confidently share my perspectives and also share my kind of honest and transparent feedback. And so that's been honestly key pillars to why I feel like this career is meaningful. And then second is, are you able to meet like the success metrics? Like, are you able to define your own success metrics in your career, whatever that success metrics are? And I think this is something that I've kind of incorporated more recently, because it's been hard for me to define what my own success metrics are. But then my manager has her own ways of defining her own success. And she's been so transparent with me and sharing that, of saying, at the end of the day, if we're able to achieve X, Y, and Z, our job is well done and we can walk out of here, and just enjoy our weekend, enjoy the rest of the day, and just, feel free and um, feel like we did a good job. And so I think that was really refreshing for me, because I've never set those success like metrics for myself. But then having that one marker of like, okay, I achieved this. I think I did a good job today and I met that goal. I can walk away. I don't have to feel like, oh, did I miss something, or should I be doing more? It really helps to prevent a lot of that self-doubt and like that narrative that you tell yourself of like, maybe you're not doing enough.
Yeah,
Um
I love that one, and I can relate to just I think this prevents you working so much, never feeling like you've done enough work because
Yeah.
when you get to a certain level in your career, there's just always going to be more work that you can do. It's never going to stop. And so I like the idea. You mentioned that this is success metric should be attainable. So it's not one of those big goals that your manager might set for you that is intentionally a little bit out of reach. This is
Exactly.
something that's like at the end of the day, at the end of the week, you could say like, it is achievable. And once I do it, then I could go home for the day or have a weekend where I'm not constantly worrying about if I should open my laptop, if I did enough, do I need to do more work? And so I think that can really, really ease anxiety. That is,
Mhm.
mhm.
Absolutely. And then the third is, I would say, fair pay, equitable pay. I think a lot of people think it's taboo to talk about that,
But
but I
thank
think
you for mentioning that.
compensation
Yes,
is
absolutely important.
absolutely important. And so I think this is like one of the most important things that you should definitely consider in a meaningful career. And I think something that you should definitely keep in mind as you think about your career trajectory. Yes, you might have that title that you might want, but does that equal in, in equal pay or like translatable pay for you? And so I think those are one of the kind of three main things that I think about um, from like a career, like meaningful career perspective. So
Yeah.
that'll be those are my
Those
two
are
cents.
great. So we have an environment where you feel supported and heard, having success metrics that are defined and attainable. And
Exactly.
then third is getting paid for your worth. And I think that goes back to just being having your value be seen and appreciated because if you're doing all this work and you're not being paid for it, it's a form of just feeling like you're underappreciated. And I can definitely relate to that. And so feeling like you're being seen for the good work that you're doing is so important, especially this podcast is primarily for women. So it's always a good reminder that pay can and should be a pillar of a successful career. It doesn't need to be something that's not talked about. It's not shameful to ask for more money or to want more money.
No,
Not at all. And I love that it's one of your three pillars.
thank you.
All right. This you are honestly giving so much value here saying this is I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up because you are so wise. I honestly all this is so great. Okay. The one other thing I want to chat about is comparison. So I feel like this is becoming more ubiquitous with social media. I think especially in COVID when all we could do is look at our phones. And when we think of comparison, we think of it a lot, maybe with social media of how you look or what your life is like, but it is also really prevalent with careers. And something
Mm,
I hear a lot from girls who are unemployed is that they look on LinkedIn, and all I see is everyone getting new jobs. And it's only people are posting the highlights and it can be
mm.
really hard or see your friends have these quote unquote really cool jobs and you feel like you don't have that. So what advice would you give for someone who's struggling with comparison and how can we not let comparison get in the way?
Yeah. Honestly, I've been guilty of this myself. I think during the pandemic, it was much less so because everyone is in the same place. But now
Yes,
that lockdowns have eased and vaccinations have rolled out worldwide and people can travel, it's it feels like what everyone is doing is traveling in Europe for 2 months and then having the
literally
best
everybody. Why?
time. Must be
Everyone went to
nice.
Europe. we're in Texas. It's 105.
It's brutally hot. But love that they're enjoying the south of France and the wine in Italy. But yeah, I've been guilty of this myself and something that I've struggled with. So I completely understand that a lot of other young women navigating their career journeys would feel this too. And quite frankly, even when I had started to work for Bumble, I was constantly on LinkedIn and looking at what my peers were doing because I was totally in the mindset of when you're in college, especially my senior year, you go through the career advisory like seminars and like you kind of get your portfolio ready. And then in all of the seminars, people will tell you 75% of your peers have 3 or 4 internships under their belt before they
Oh yeah, those
graduate.
little metrics.
And 75 and something like 75% of your peers or majority of your peers go to agency life in New York City and Chicago and LA before transitioning to in-house. And so that kind of gets ingrained in your brain of like, oh, I don't want to go into an agency. I'm the anomaly here. Like, am I not meant for this field? Or I look at all my peers going to like fabulous agencies in New York and landing their like lifestyle clients in fashion beauty. Like, should I be doing that? I never thought I'd be in tech. And so a lot of the self-doubt and like the comparison really, really, really affected me during the beginning of my career, and almost to the point where I felt like imposter syndrome of like, oh, should I like want those things that they have? And like, am I kind of taking an opportunity away from other people that might want to be here? And I think what really grounded me was going through the exercise um, of I like, of what is it that is actually missing for me in my life though? Like, what is it that I think is so critically missing in my life to the point where I feel unappreciative of the life that I've cultivated so far? And that was a question that really, really nailed it for me and grounded me, because I went through an actual list of like, what's missing in my life? Is it the career? Because it's really not, because I feel like I'm in a great position in a really exciting company that's doing wonderful mission driven work that I feel really jazzed about. And I feel like I'm in a great position to continue to grow here. And so looking at my growth potential, it crossed off the box for me. Um, do I really want to be in New York City and Chicago and like getting to client meetings in my like heels and my makeup every day?
It looks so
Um,
glamorous on TV.
I know, it looks so glamorous. Do I really want that? And the question is, no, I've visited these cities and I didn't vibe with the city. I love Austin and I love the city, and I love all of the things that I have here, the people and the community. And then, as far as like the rest of my life goes, like the body that you see on Instagram, is that what I really want? Like, do I really want to be eating like those like quinoa bowls and like doing that for myself and kind of depriving myself of like the joys of like trying out new restaurants and going to happy hours, all of those things? And the answer was no. I was pretty actually happy with my life. And that is the truth that I know. And that is the truth that I will stick to no matter whatever I see on Instagram or TikTok or anywhere else. And so that is the piece that I've taken away from that one question and that one exercise, and something that I've like just try to stick with anytime I feel like I'm being swayed, because it's an exercise that you have to do constantly, because yeah, it is, you are online so much. You are connected digitally to like what everyone else is doing, and it feels like you do have to kind of follow that trend or follow like the lifestyles and kind of make that yours. But the actual truth is, like, I'm pretty happy with my life and I don't want to be anyone else. I root for myself always, and I just want myself to be better. In order to do that, I have to set my own goals and I have to set my own vision board, and that's not anyone else's.
That is beautiful. I that is such a great exercise to walk through, and do I really want this? And I think you're right. In the case most of us really don't. The example that comes to mind for me is that I don't know if you're on TikTok, you see that girl, and it's like that girl morning routine or that girl this, and I think, well, I like, going to when I go to bed, I'm in old clothes and, I wake up and my kitchen is not aesthetic and I don't eat a green smoothie for breakfast, but I find myself wanting all those things and wanting to buy the cups that they drink their coffee out of and all of these things. But I love that question. It's like, do I really want this? Like, is this really for me, or is this what I feel like I should want because everyone around me wants it too? And holding
100%.
on to your individuality is really, really hard, but I think so important.
Mhm, mhm. Exactly.
All right, saying, well, I can't believe you were nervous because you did absolutely amazing in this episode. This was so much fun. So much of what we talked about, I think is incredibly valuable. And there were so many actionable pieces here that
Mhm.
I can't wait for everyone to listen to this. So thank you again. And where can our audience find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to share the link with you after this. But I'm on LinkedIn, so please feel free to connect with me there. And it's been such an honor talking to you, and it's been so great chatting. I think it's all thanks to you that my nerves really evaporated away. This really felt like a candid conversation, and I so appreciate the time.